This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
But Nancy was not feeling so smug as she had after Garrow's almost completely organized escape, when 3 days later, Germans give up the Vichy facade and march a shit ton of Wehrmacht troops across the demarcation line, separating occupied and Vichy France, and
it's almost
they
like they didn't give a shit about treaties. I mean, who would have fucking thought, right? Like, who would have thought?
Oh, it's so fucking surprising. I mean, like, who could have taken a goddamn guess that they would come in true German fashion? Now, they're essentially invited by the little shitheel Vichy Premier Pierre Laval to, quote unquote, defend France. And the Nazis were soon goose-stepping here and there.
That sounds like, Jessica, the invitation to defend certain things. Sounds a little January 6th to me.
Does
it?
Does it,
really?
Kara? Does that feel familiar? How could you possibly assume that such? Oh God, it's
almost.
It's you know what? It's almost like it's not that far fetched.
I'm picking up your sarcasm.
Well, I should hope so, because I'm laying it on pretty thick.
Like when you let fascism in the back door, you get full-fledged penetration.
Do you get them goose-stepping here, there, and everywhere, including up your asshole? Is that how it works? Is that how fashion
certainly did?
Yeah, they certainly justify that belief if there was ever any justification. So, Nancy tells us one little anecdote I enjoy, and I wouldn't include it, guys, if I don't believe in little narratives in history. I only include it because I think it capitalizes on Nancy's ideas. Yes, that's the only reason I include this. So, again, a Nancy anecdote. We're going to let her speak to it. A whole troop of them being Nazis, folks, or Gestapo, passed in front of the tram as we stopped, and the tram driver took one look at them and his bottom lip started trembling. Still, without making a sound, he began to cry, the tears rolling down his cheeks as we drove on. Then suddenly, the tears stopped rolling as he pulled himself together and got this really hard look on his face. Like, whatever it takes, I'll see the end of you. I'll never forgotten that.
Wow.
Dude.
That's insane.
She's just a hard bitch, man. She noticed things like that. Dude, I love Nancy Wake. She appeals to me on every fucking level. Like, had enough of your shit. Fuck off. So now there's no point in pretending that the Vichy government is not just an extension of the Nazis, as we know. And it's not fun as things were before. It's about to get a whole lot worse. So that means many changes for Nancy and the O'Leary line. The resistance, French and British, found the occupation of Vichy France meant a great deal more help from citizens, so that's positive, but not altogether, as we're going to find out. Ridiculous as it may seem, a great many had taken the view that the war was for the north of France and not to worry about. But the occupation was in fact illusion that was shattered nonetheless. The Germans were no longer simply at the gates. The Huns at the gates, if you will, folks. They were everywhere. This
And
made
let's
the
not forget, there were
resistance.
collaborators, right? Like they didn't just walk in without assistance, you know? Like that's, I think, one of the things that struck me when I visited the Resistance Museum, the Jean Moulin Museum in Paris, was it actually shows you, like, you know, that there were collaborators with it. And boy, did they get the price to pay after the war. Those fucks had what's coming to it.
They got exactly what was fucking coming to them. I regret none of it. In hindsight, I regret none of it. A lot of people are going to tell you they do. I do not. Like I said, they're everywhere. So, furthermore, this occupation by German troops leads to the creation of the milice, a sort of military style, homegrown police force / army commanded by the Gestapo. Now, the men of the milice were very pro-German and proud to be called collaborators. So, Premier Laval orders the formation of the milice in early 43, outlining that they were to essentially quell internal dissent, began rounding up Jews, and hunt down any involved in any kind of resistance. Basically, he says, go forth, be Nazis, if you will. So, I hate this cunt. So on top of the milice, it didn't take long for the Gestapo, or as we all know, the German secret state police, to show up. It never does. Then again, for those of you who don't know, the Gestapo was an organized, essentially an organization, or better, an organized sort of police, sort of military force, tasked with the extermination of all opposition to Nazi rule in Germany or her subjugated territories. So, as well as rounding up Jews, on top of all that, they're tasked with rounding up Jews to be sent to concentration camps. I cannot emphasize that they're the biggest piece of shit. Maybe, and share it in all of Germany. And that's a tough fucking ribbon to win, folks. Like, Jesus Christ. Outside of the eagle's nest, what do you win? Like being the biggest cunts in the known universe?
Yeah.
I guess.
It's
That's what you win.
They wear a sash.
I mean, the thing is, it's like Nazis are like code word for the epitome of evil, like for all time, right? Like the standard, and anyone associated or assisting them should be considered on that same level because they know what's going on and are still willingly doing shit with them or encouraging them.
You would think that, Kara, and yet some of them still get invited to be part of like House and senatorial teams. You'd think that. You would think
It's
that.
almost like in political positions, people can have outlandish fucking conspiracy or evil fascist tendencies and still keep their position. Isn't that interesting?
It's called total acquittal.
Kara,
What?
how dare you speak fucking sense into this microphone? We don't speak fucking sense here, madam. Like it's I don't know. It's almost like they're allowed to take a shit in the Capitol building.
And smear their shit all over France instead of the Capitol Dome Rotunda.
You'd think
Walk
that,
away
but
unharmed.
and yet the Eagle's Nest is still allowed to be a fucking ruin in Busch Garden, but whatever. And you know what? I bet they all have a dog named fucking Blondie, the pieces of shit.
Oh,
Do you think they don't?
that's what I meant.
I think
like
they
Cruz
do.
calls his wife in bed.
I do too. Oh.
For multiple reasons. As you will.
Kara, I've heard a lot of jokes in recent weeks. Hands down, the fucking best. Like, oh my god, if he doesn't, I don't know.
You'll be disappointed.
So the important thing to remember about the Gestapo is they're not required to answer to any higher authority, if you will. So in other words, they could arrest, detain, and torture anyone they even suspected of being an enemy to the Nazi cause with no higher appeal to court or anything else. So I want you to imagine that also within view of as shitty as the American justice system is, tain't that shitty, just saying. So no matter how legitimate your business or in order your paperwork, if the Gestapo didn't just like the look of you,
They could torture
they
you.
do
could,
whatever.
They could take you
Yeah.
out back,
They'll
so to
just
speak.
torture you.
Wow. That sucks. Hardcore. Like you could sneeze. Like here in the day of age of coronavirus, you sneeze and everybody avoids you like the plague.
Weirdly enough,
You would be like,
weirdly enough, you're exactly right. Oh, you sneeze wrong. Fuck you.
You looked at him wrong.
Welcome
which is
to
what I could more or less,
welcome
like,
to
see him.
Gestapo detention. Oh, they would have loved the age of coronavirus. Randomly coughing.
They would also
They're
love detaining
Oh,
people and putting them
think
in
how
cages.
think how hard their dicks would have gotten. You know, if maybe you were an innocent at the border. You're right, Kara. Putting
They would have
someone in
just pissed themselves.
cages.
You know what's
Oh my
interesting?
god. Can you
It's important to
imagine?
note Germans with, and this is a side quest, but eugenics were inspired in part to Americans.
It's actually a great side quest. You could follow it from the Kellogg Corporation down to the Kennedys. It's actually a lot of fun.
And I mean, people that interact during this time period. Remember, the first Kennedy brother was actually killed during World War II.
Boy, and he was such an asshole, and he advocated that one sister. Yeah, you know the
poor
one.
Rosemary, the one that
Poor
experimented.
Rosemary.
Sounds like some Gestapo shit in a way. doesn't
What?
it?
She was the second. She was the second person ever to have received that, if I'm correct. I don't know.
That
I may
particular
be
type
wrong.
of, I think. I mean, lobotomy
Yeah.
has been done before, but
That particular type of lobotomization.
that's stuff the Gestapo would have loved. Torture somebody, lobotomize them when
Oh
they're alive.
my god. Can you imagine how fucking Nazi hard they'd have gotten for that? And it's disgusting, as we can all agree. God, what a bunch of assholes. So, Nancy and themselves, like they find themselves again surrounded by the police, which is basically the Gestapo, who is also in town, plus the black market police, and the standard issue French gendarmes. So this gendarme, so the stakes are never higher, but Nancy's not bothered. Nancy, quote, it certainly kept me on my toes. The fact that there were so many repressive organizations meant that there was more potential for somebody to, quote unquote, fall between the cracks because there's a lot of administrative overlap. One body assumed that another body was responsible for something, and
Bureaucracy,
vice
basically.
versa. But what a bold bitch to look the Gestapo in the face and
Be
rely.
like, meh, they're too bureaucratical. They'll never get
Meh.
me.
Yeah, exactly. She's maybe the boldest bitch in all of history, including like Cleopatra in a carpet. Okay. She might be the hardest bitch that ever existed. That blows my mind. She's like, I don't care. Still the Germans, clearly thick on the ground and devoted to stamping out resistance. In Marseille, a lot of resistance was concentrated in one particular spot known as the Vieux-Port, a hotbed of criminal activity both before and during the war. So it's no small wonder that the Nazis had a spot of trouble when when they would enter the labyrinth of streets.
Can I please do it? We got trouble. We got trouble here in River City. We got trouble.
Trouble. Oh my God. It's for this. This is what it's meant for. Oh my God. Because not only did criminals and resistant folk have a tendency to disappear instantly and the place chased to the edge of by officers, by occupants of the Vieux-Port had a habit of throwing buckets of, say, raw sewage out
That's a timed
on.
old tradition. Honestly.
No, I would have done it too, and I'm super
Wait,
into it.
They throw buckets of raw sewage where?
Out the window, man. Like, literally.
Out the window on patrols. So, like,
Oh, shit.
literally a shit and piss latrine bucket.
Well, damn.
Let them know how you feel.
Yeah.
Which,
It's
Bethany,
big old whoops. Sorry,
if anybody deserved it,
well, yes.
they deserved it,
No,
right?
I agree. I just think it's hilarious. Like, oops, didn't see there. My bad.
Oh my God. And that's exactly what they did. Oh my God.
Sorry.
My bad. So many a Millicent would also meet an accident if isolated from their patrol, if you will. Many an ill-timed heavy object might choose to fall down a flight of stairs onto them, including, they may be knifed several times.
Oh my
Outside a specific house, it's very Chicago. He fell into my knife.
My knife. He ran into my knife 10 times.
They had yeah. No, I think they had it coming by by Chicago is the most yeah. No. It's well served, very well served. So, many were detained and sent to camps in the Viapor, and a lucky few were not grabbed. What they could grab essentially in belongings was what was allowed in Marseille, and some 20,000 people were left with nothing, and some 2,000 buildings were burnt to the ground.
Shit.
Now, take a fucking guess as to how Nancy Wake felt about all this.
I can't imagine she smiled.
I cannot imagine
No.
she took a smile, right? You cannot imagine she accepted this well. In fact, you know, like, I would say it's a further thing that really pissed Nancy the fuck off.
Right.
And I understand it. Like, with just that nasty terminology, pissed me the fuck off. So this is our backdrop for Nancy's second prison break. All this has happened. All this has happened. She's lost her goddamn, like, fucking patience, right? She's not dealing with it. So the camp guards had been replaced by the gendarmes, but Nancy's original plans were shot. She needed help. So she pesters the fuck out of her old friend O'Leary, which
This
is
is
going to
like
be something.
you, I swear. This is like you and Dr. Doctor.
He owes me. I get it. Like, that motherfucker. Are you kidding me? I didn't do all this work to be shot to nonsense. You're exactly right. I get her. I get Nancy at a deep fucking level. So, she just, again, pesters the fuck out of O'Leary to take charge of the escape for Garrow. Like, I can't even, like, every single day she was there, guys. Just like, what are you doing about it, Garrow? Are you doing anything about Garrow? What do you feel about Garrow? Like, that is what she was doing till he finally was like, fuck, I'll take care of Garrow. So Nancy's original contact in the prison stayed true from her original OG prison break.
Oh, wow.
And Leary procures another uniform to allow Garrow to walk out of the prison unnoticed during a shift change.
No
So
way.
Garrow, escapes through the Pyrenees on the very line he himself had established.
Is maze balls.
Because she wouldn't let off of it.
Right.
Like,
And what Nancy wants, Nancy gets.
It's a very understated, like, idea, but you're exactly right. What Nancy wants, Nancy motherfucking gets.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a ridiculous thing to highlight in war. It would be if we were talking in anyone else but Nancy fucking Wake. Like, what she wants, she motherfucking gets. And if you don't like it, watch me make you like it. That's her entire, I need a reason. I'll make one up.
Yeah.
Which is incredible to me. Out of somebody on a spy line. It's just, but that's exactly how it works. So the early months of 1943 were all work and no play for our sweet Nancy. Now, the O'Leary line is busier than ever, and her courier missions for the French resistance pick up as the organization grew, right? So she's biking like miles and miles a day, pretending to be no one with her papers, delivering like radio parts, which is a nonsensical thing because she's also helping the British just get it. It's just insane, right? It's like, what the fuck is this bitch up to? So, like I said, O'Leary line busier than ever. Like we were talking about French resistance, she's definitely picked up. So, Allied command began bombing raids, and this is something that happens on the continent that's going to throw her off a little bit. So, Allied command began bombing raids in earnest across Germany and in occupied territory. But the Wehrmacht hardly took to escape or took it lying down. They didn't
go out
move
without
to
a fight,
escape
basically.
lines. They didn't take it lying down. They weren't like a fucking pussy defense, if you can imagine that. Again, things changed later, but it's not something you want to deal with. So a greater number of Allied planes met a greater number of men needing to escape via alliance because, of course, as you fight the Wehrmacht in this bombing campaign, a greater number of men are going to go down and be stuck in Europe. And she ain't fucking around, right? Like, she wants to get them out back to Britain. She's not dicking around. So, according to Nancy, that meant that even O'Leary was suddenly obliged to rely on people that he didn't actually know well, making it all the more easy for a traitor or a Nazi operative to penetrate the network and betray us, just as Cole had on one occasion. But what could he and we do?
Yeah.
We couldn't turn away the airmen who needed our help, and we couldn't keep expanding. And so we just had to keep expanding the best we could and hoping that everything went all right. And I want to talk about, oh my God, I don't know. Like at that point, I don't know, though, that I'd be so double may care as Miss Nancy Wake, if you will.
Like I'd
She
be
just doesn't give a fuck.
I would. I'd be shitting my pants. I would. I'd be shitting bricks right now.
No,
I
but
would've
that's not
cut it
how
off.
she is.
I
She's
would have
more
cut
like,
it
give
off.
me more.
Right? That's the most fucking insane thing I've ever heard in the world. She is a lady of Versailles, a madame about town. Like, she didn't just give a fuck. She hates him that much that she's like, I don't care. It's what any citizen of the crown would do, which is the most patriotic and insane thing I've ever heard in my life, because Nancy Wake honestly expected everybody else to do the same thing that she's doing.
Yeah. You can tell. You can tell like
No,
this is
she
like
expected it. She expected it. And anybody that didn't do that, as we will see later, is a fucking pussy to her. And it is just bizarre beyond me that she expected this out of all of her. She's just hard. She's hard in a way I will never be hard.
Phrasing?
She soon found it difficult to maintain the facade of the frivolous and empty-headed Madame Fioca A Woman About Town, as we all know, was her cover up in Marseille for all of this bullshit. So it was at this point Nancy became aware that the Germans were looking for a woman whose
Oh no.
description she fit to a T.
Oh
Now,
no.
the Germans had codenamed the mysterious woman in question the White Mouse because of her ability to
To evade
disappear.
traps.
Yes, just as they thought they had her cornered. And think about that. Let's do it in Nancy's own words before we think about that. Nancy later told the journalist in the most Nancy fucking fashion I've ever heard. I gotta admit, I had a swelled head. I thought, God, they have a code name in Berlin. Of course you would. And there are a lot of criticisms I could make for Nancy Wake, and I kind of want to make them now, because I'm not gonna have room later. It's sort of this ridiculous, like, how long would her and Henri's marriage have lasted? How successful would a woman like Nancy Wake have been outside of wartime? And I argue that wartime makes Nancy Wake.
Maketh the woman.
Yeah.
I
I
actually agree. I agree. She really came into her stride once everything started.
like, I think in any other era, Nancy Wake is a bored journalist, somebody's wife, whatever. But she just has no fear. And that's what I wanted to highlight in our early episode. She has no fear, which is quite frankly incredible. And you'll find, and she certainly doesn't die up until the end, the bitch has no fear of anything. She just doesn't care. She hates Nazis and she has no fear, and it sees her through the end of the war. Still, news signaling to Nancy that the Germans are closing in, right? There one day after her finishing as a French resistance courier, had kind of caught and stopped Nancy at a bistro, right? So this is where she's cued in that they're following her. A courier kind of stops her at a bistro, and happens to be the owner, dear friend of Nancy's, informs her that when she left that morning, he was sure someone had been following her. Now, this hardly
That's always
surprised
comforting.
right? Great. So this hardly surprised Nancy, despite having missed the tale herself, which she very seldom did. But in the meantime, she thought it was highly possible she had noticed her telephone making strange clicking sounds of late, sure sign of it being tapped. And Nancy's maid had caught a man going through their mail just 3 days earlier. Which,
Wow.
yeah, if that isn't a sign, I don't know what is. So Nancy felt if they were onto her and not yet arrested her, they were attempting to follow her to attempt to discover those involved in a larger network. Now, Henri would hear none of Nancy's protests, and he decided it was time Nancy made her own escape back to England. Henri persisted in remaining behind to shore up the business for further attempts for his father and employees to be successful, or the two would lose everything. Now, I'm not going to say.
I think that's
I'm not
really
going to say It breaks my heart as well. I think it's truly noble, but I think you and I both know how that's going to go.
Not
no.
well, basically.
Not if she's already fingered by the Gestapo.
No, because at that point, if they know you exist, they're gonna know like everything about you.
Exactly. If they
Think
know
of it
you're
like this, like
alive,
Facebook, right? Like, and you're like wanted. They're gonna be able to, figure out who you talk to, who you're related to, all of that, real quick.
if you live and you breathe, the Gestapo is going to make you pay for it.
Wow.
Period. Just because they fucking feel like it. They are animals. You know, unite, whatever. All you Turner Diaries fucks, whatever you're into, you might not love the Gestapo, just like further fucking thought or reading. So, the two, Henri and Nancy, make plans for Nancy to escape for the time being, like along the very routes that she had always initiated in and of themselves, right?
Right.
So
It's time for
every
her to use them.
it's time for her to use them, but every second counts, and that is in the utmost of their awareness and the utmost of Henri's awareness. I just can't talk about what a great husband he was, and we should all be so lucky. So Nancy is to leave right away, right? And make for Toulouse, where O'Leary himself is stationed at, so that Nancy might escape on the very route that she had helped to ferry so many along on, right? To the Pyrenees. And finally, after Pyrenees, Spain, England, right? That was the venture. So Nancy's role, guys, this like fucking amazes me because it's not a small number. And this like it makes me cry every time. Nancy's role at the Pat O'Leary line had come to an end, but not before Berlin's White Mouse had helped an estimated 1,037 Allied soldiers and Jewish refugees
Shit.
Damn.
escape
wartime France.
Meanwhile, also running to be a spy for two different resistances. Holy pitch, man. That's insane.
Like
That's
it seriously does. This is one of the few things that makes me cry. Like I'm wiping tears out of my eyes, just like Jesus.
I want to
Fucking
be her. I want to be
Christ.
her. I want to be her when I grow up.
It's not 500. It's 1,037. And how much you want to bet to the Allied soldiers' number to Jewish refugees? I know what's the greater one, realistically.
Yeah.
And just like as much as she talks about talking with refugees' children and getting them out, it is like the most heartbreaking shit you guys can ever read. Like, trust me, this is why I've got mired down on this, because when you realize the number that she's not fucking around with, like, this is why she's the White Mouse. That's not a small number. That is insane. Plus the fact.
Well, I was gonna say, but she also she put a lot of herself in this movement, in everything. I feel like so. Honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised because she cared that much.
She cared that much, and I cannot understate how much she fucking hates these pricks. Like, and it's gonna become I'm gonna kind of skip through her journey through the Pyrenees and some shit like that so we can just get to the SO. Like, you have no idea yet, Bethany, how much she hates them. And it is it's incredible. It's incredible that just like that hatefulness manifest. I'm a great fucking admirer and a great believer. Just what hatefulness can get can get done, but like, quite frankly, Nancy Wake is the. And then I saw her face, and I'm a believer, if you will.
Yeah.
So
Smash Mouth?
Nancy,
Really?
Yeah, she went there. Don't judge her.
I don't think that's a Smash Mouth song, though. I thought it was something before.
I thought love was only true in fairy tales.
Pretty sure it is. I thought it was reappropriated for them.
For Shrek?
For Shrek.
Fun fact, the song was originally written by Neil Diamond and recorded originally by the novelty 60s band The Monkees.
So Nancy grabbed a small bag for essentials, which is only the finest, right? Her jewelry. Nancy
The expensive
promised to
shit.
get, yeah, exactly, the shit that might get her somewhere so she could have some movable money if she traded it. And Nancy promised to get word to Henri as soon as she's past the mountains. She stuffed her coat pockets with money, and the two said goodbye. I'm not going to go into it, but oh my God, you want to break your fucking heart. Go ahead and look that up. So Nancy states she cried all the way to the station, and when within a half an hour of the hour, began making plans for her actual escape to France. Nancy knew it was one thing, though, to decide to escape, and another thing to
Actually go. To actually make it.
to actually fucking make it. And I'll give her that. So during the first week in hiding, Nancy attempted to escape twice, and both times had to turn back because of the weather.
Oh.
A week later, Nancy returned to Perpignan, and yet again to be defeated by the weather. Third time was hardly a charm. Nancy was forced to board a train back to Toulouse and try again the next week, right? But it was just outside the station in Toulouse that Nancy's train was stopped and boarded by armed policemen. Now they demanded everyone exit the train and get into the waiting trucks to be taken to the station and have their papers examined. Nancy, in a last-ditch effort, decides to jump for it once the truck had taken off, and would have escaped had she not been caught up in a bunch of students currently protesting against something or other,
which is not a
I
shocking
think
thing
is,
for France, to be honest.
no,
Young
I
kids
was
are always
gonna
protesting.
say, like, fitting, very fitting to be caught in a protest trying to do something real, which is kind of funny to me. So police are able to catch up with our Nancy. Now, Nancy had one piece of incriminating evidence on her. It's the only thing she had, which is a British £5 note. But I laughed when I essentially read this. A £5 note that 5 airmen had, that she'd helped escape last through the line. They had all signed it as kind of a memento for her. So the bitch eats it. eats it right then and there. Yeah, she didn't even pause. And oh my God, Bethany, you and I know how much we fucking respect her for just eating it.
Just eat it. You just gotta.
Yeah.
You want to
How
get
many
out there.
times have we almost or have been arrested in which you just have to eat it?
You just gotta swallow it whole.
Swallow it whole. Get over it. Get over it, you fucking cunts. And Nancy Wake fucking nailed it. I'm very proud of her. So Nancy directly on this, and it always makes me laugh when I read it. Henri used to say that I could eat money like no one
Oh,
that he ever knew. But this time I really did.
that's funny. Oh my God, she's so fucking funny. I can't.
I'm
get over
sorry, she's so fucking funny. And has there ever been a more down ass
Nah, but she
bitch in
knows.
all?
She's everything, but she's a little too self-aware, if you know what I mean. Like, she's like proud. She's like,
I'm here
she's
for it.
not
Though.
humble. She's many things, but she's certainly not humble.
I would say that she's me from the ages of 21 to 23, smoking a lot of illegal weed and pulled over in the state of Texas. Like, you just eat that shit. That's what you do. You're going to have a great time. You're going to have a great time even if you're in a holding cell because you're going to be high as fuck. Like, get over yourself. So,
Prove it.
I would have done this to get off the charges. God knows I just had good lawyers. So, again, sue me. So, the police take Nancy to the station and demanded to know why she was on board the train from Perpignan to Toulouse when her papers stated that she was a resident of Marseille. Now, this wasn't a crime per se, but at this point in France, one had to, if you will, have a specific purpose for traveling.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Like,
Yeah, like transit
she's-
papers. Like, you had to say why you're going. Like, you were working. There were only certain kinds of reasons that would be accepted, basically.
She's
Yeah.
not just allowed to take a journey because she's written that shit's
Think of it
not.
like a lockdown, right? Like in
Yeah.
modern
Oh,
times,
yeah.
I suppose.
I
Like,
was-
you ain't just going anywhere.
Yeah.
Well, that's not parallels I love to draw, but in essence.
All right. But here we are, and here we're still staying.
But here we are. I have a lot of comments on that, but whatever.
I wasn't thinking in the U.S. I was thinking what the situation is in France at the moment.
Yeah, me
Unfortunately.
too. Why I had a bunch of comments on it. So, Nance lies, right? Like that's her standard, whatever. Says she had been on a business trip with her well-known industrialist husband. And again, Henri is well known. He's a shipbuilder, Henri Fioca. Now, she stated the two had fought, he had left, and she didn't know where he had gone, right? So she's making her way to Toulouse, essentially. So she then demanded they release her because she's Nancy. But this second time out and lying to authorities, similar to the commandant, Nancy's not going to be so lucky. So
No.
the police threw Nancy into a cell for the night, claiming they would check out her story, and were giving her a night to consider if she wanted to, quote unquote, tell the truth. Now, Nancy had, in those few hours of interrogation, at least discovered what it was the police were specifically looking for. Now, a cinema in Toulouse showcasing a movie from well-known fascist Tino Rossi had been blown up, if you will, in a sort of, I guess, familiar film parallel. No doubt by the resistance. So the police were under pressure to come up with the guilty party, right? And they had their eyes set on Nancy. She had run. She seemed the right age. They couldn't necessarily immediately pin her down because of her papers. So
Yeah.
that evening, they dragged Nancy out of her cell and said there was no woman by the name of Fioca in Marseille, which she already knows is a lie, and that she's lying.
Wow.
Which again, common thing among the Gestapo and the gendarme and the police at the time. So
They just didn't bother with even checking her story out. Like not even a little bit.
right, they just wanted a guilty person. They don't give two shits.
Kind of.
Right.
I don't know if you've seen Casablanca, but it's like there's an expression in it that's like
That's
round up the
exactly
usual
right.
suspects, so to speak, where it's just you're finding a scapegoat, essentially, is what it refers to.
I mean, that makes sense. I mean, I'm not that it makes sense. I mean, what I mean is like for the time being, they just wanted it was an easy catch and they're like, "Oh my god, I think we've got, case closed, kind of thing." And it was just an easy way out. And I have a good idea that Nancy was going to have none of it.
Not even Nancy. Someone more clever than her, which is a lot of fun. So what that meant, according to Nancy Fioca of Marseille at that, was that they didn't even care enough to make the call to Marseille to check out that part of the story.
Yeah.
They wanted someone to be guilty, and I was close enough. So the police then slapped Nancy around in an attempt to make her confess. And when that didn't work, they kind of put her in a room with some kind of Turkish toilet for the night. Later on in the evening, however, a kinder one of the gendarmes, and this kind of breaks my heart in a good way, led her to an internal office where he fed her and gave her coffee. He then allowed Nancy to sleep on the desk, which, as we can all agree, is far better than the concrete floor with a hole in the floor toilet underneath his own great coat.
Is
right?
this like because he feels sorry because she's a woman, or because he knows her, or
No,
I'm curious.
just human kindness,
Oh my god, I love that.
right? He doesn't
I
even know if she's not
Okay.
guilty, just a decent human fucking being.
And
Which
here-
That's interesting.
Here I am.
Nuance.
it
Here
is nuanced.
Here-
Because he didn't know if she was guilty or not. It didn't matter.
Yeah,
It's
'cause
just
here
a
I'm thinking-
random.
Yeah, because here I am thinking that he knew her, or he was gonna get something out of it, or maybe he was against what was happening. But no, he just had decency.
He never asked her to sleep with him. He was never weird about it. He didn't even know if she was guilty or not. It was just, as she markates it, as she puts it in her autobiography and tells a great number of people, it was just human kindness. He was just a decent fucking man.
Which is rare to find during that particular time.
Oh my God, which is why it makes you want to weep, right? Like he was just not an asshole. So come dawn, the gendarme led her back to the room and locks her up once more. And the next day was much the same. They questioned and beat Nancy, having become convinced at this point she was a prostitute involved in the bomb plot. That night, she's taken back to the toilet in the floor room. And once again, the kind gendarme fed her and let her sleep in the office. Now, this...
Hold on, I just think it's hilarious because it's like it feels like they're just grasping at straws at this point. Because now they're like, oh
Yeah, they're like,
know,
we don't know
she's
what you are, but you're something.
Yes.
You're something. Your papers don't line up. We're coming at you.
Yeah, it's just hilarious to me. It's just like they're like, okay, what we gotta get something. We gotta get him for something.
They're trying to be hard before either the police or the Gestapo shows up, right?
Right.
That's the point. So this continues for 4 days. Nancy being just having the fuck beat out of her during the day and allowed to sleep in an office by a gendarme at night, right? So the bitch never cracks though. She's fucking hard. Like, you can kick the shit out of me, I don't care. On the 4th day, when the door to the toilet is open, Nancy found she's face to face with Patrick O'Leary.
Oh shit.
Oh shit is
Talk about
right.
deep.
Deep. Right. This is some great espionage shit right here. A man so deep he can pretend to be anyone. And has a command of the language, being a Belgium. So he embraced her, joking with the 2 policemen before doing so, and whispers to her quickly and succinctly, "You best start looking fond of me," essentially, as the policemen believe she is his mistress, which I would have like sucked his fucking face at that point. Like, right? Like,
I would have gotten on my knees and I would have just done what I
sucked
needed.
him off in front of the gendarmes. Anything to stop being fucked with. Anything to get out of being fucking beaten for 4 days, right? Like, I'm down with. So, in under half an hour, Nancy was walking out of jail, arm in arm with O'Leary, who was the most active resistance man in the region.
They have no fucking clue.
They don't. It's just, this is like, this is why I devote myself to this fucking, because it's the most like, what the fuck story that's ever, like, literally, this is some James Bond bullshit.
She's Wake. Nancy Wake. I'm sorry.
But O'Leary to walk in there and let me explain to you exactly the risk O'Leary took, because he thought Nancy was this valuable. So when O'Leary heard Nancy had been taken, he set resistant contacts to discover where Nancy was being kept. After 4 days, it becomes clear that Nancy had betrayed no one in the line, and O'Leary knew, like, he knew there was no way, like, in good conscience, he couldn't rescue her, right? He was hoping, oh, she's gonna betray us, she'll be an easy dump, who gives a shit? But she was hard. And it was like, after they kicked the shit out of her all day, and O'Leary's like, fine, after 4 fucking days, she hadn't given us up.
Which
I have to rescue her.
Because he didn't give 2 shits about Garrow, who actually founded, and did. I mean, I'm not saying that Nancy didn't do.
I would argue Garrow was less useful than Nancy. And also, you're going to take 4 days to decide Nancy's useful to your spy network. But that's just the spy game, Bethany. It's not a nice thing.
True. True. Very true.
Okay. So he's got a rescuer, he's decided, right? So he and his lieutenants briefly thought of just attacking the station guns blazing, but O'Leary felt he was enough of an expert on the French psyche to pull off a ruse. And he is not wrong. Like, I want him to be wrong with that generalization, right?
Right.
Like, I want him to say, like, all Frenchmen can't be boiled down in a day's fucking ruse. I really want that to be the case. However, he kind of proves differently. So O'Leary dressed as a man of means and entered the station, slyly telling the officers that Nancy was his mistress and that was why she had been vague about her destination. He then claimed to be a member of the milice, providing the
Oh
officers,
my God.
yeah, with fake papers.
What the
Fuck.
4-day drawn up fake papers to prove that he's an officer of the milice. But it gets saltier, motherfuckers. Like, I wish this was as salty as it got. There's some schmoozing. Kind of amongst the men time shit talk, right? And
Locker room
O'Leary.
talk?
Yeah, locker room talk. Grab him by the pussy. And then O'Leary tops it off by pretending to be a close friend of the Vichy pro-Nazi premier,
Oh wow.
Laval.
Oh my God. Like straight
That
to the
is
top. Holy
fucking
Yeah.
balls.
and
He
genius.
pulls a straight to the fucking top card, and here's why. O'Leary had done his homework, learning that Laval was in Berlin that day. So O'Leary then stated, as Laval was in Berlin, he couldn't be contacted, which is not incorrect, because it couldn't be, unless it was by a top contact.
Oh my God, this is just insane.
Just essentially not by a man such as him, yada, 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 or he wouldn't be wasting his time talking to cunts at the station. Like, literally his fucking position. Like, if this motherfucker wasn't in Berlin, do you think I'd be wasting my time at the station? Like, just fucking nasty and like authoritative. Like, you don't want to know, if you're these guys, what might happen to you if a lover of the real Madame Fioca of Marseille, because that is true, might have something to fucking say about you to Laval. Like, they're not willing to take the chance, etc., etc. Nancy's a free woman. She walks out. They both walk out.
Oh my God.
Now that, ladies and gentlemen, is fucking spycraft.
I want to be her. I swear to God, I want to be her when I grow
I want
up.
to be him.
I want to be O'Leary. Well, you want to be O'Leary. Unfortunately, I'm not going to cover it in my next episode. He is captured and sent to a concentration camp for 10 years, but that motherfucker comes out alive.
Oh my
strong.
God.
Comes out alive. Comes out strong, even being sent to a German camp. And
damn.
you don't even want to see the numbers of medals that he's fucking bedecked with. Yeah.
Wow.
But it's the O'Leary line. Didn't fuck around. A goddamn random Belgian doctor that said, I see the Nazis for what they are and I don't fucking like them. That's it. That's
Yeah.
all he, like, that is incredible to me.
You know where he died?
How did he
Waterloo.
die?
He died in Waterloo
Of
in
course he did.
1989. Well, and he actually lived to be fucking old, man. Like, which is
Yeah, he was an
impressive.
old motherfucker because he was a First World War veteran. If I'm correct or close to it. Like, he was randomly on that ship.
I don't think he was.
Probably not, but he
He
was randomly on that ship as a full grown and licensed doctor, right? So he was
He was born
fairly
in
old.
1911 and died in 1989.
Yeah. So they took him as some whatever he saw on that ship, and he was allowed to survive as a doctor. He came his way into France and said, fuck them. So who knows what happened? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a very noted thing, whatever, and I've tried to see or understand what he saw and understood between that period in history. But whatever it was, when he showed up in France, he was ready to fuck them.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that was, but it was enough, I guess. I can't imagine.
No. Definitely
And I
not.
don't want to know. I don't want to know what you saw to have the fucking cojones to walk into a gendarme French station and rescue a known British and French spy and not give two tits. I don't want to know what you saw, sir. I assume that it was life altering
Yeah.
or enough for you yourself to spend 10 years at a concentration camp and have the will to survive
Yeah.
and come out and be like,
Yeah, and
you're
apparently it wasn't just
fucked.
any concentration camp. It was Mauthausen, which is one of
Yes. It was the place
the and then
that
Dachau.
he
Oh, shit.
ironically, yeah, that he had ironically helped thousands to escape from in
Yeah.
direct order. He got out of Dachau. Can you imagine what a
Yeah.
tough motherfucker we're talking about?
God.
Dachau. Jesus fucking Christ. Can you imagine? His 3 years of his brief internment was spent there. His actual time was spent in Dachau, and he deserves every medal that every nation fucking draped on him. Jesus Christ.
I agree. Damn. Pretty impressive.
He's a tough motherfucker. And at the end of the day, he marched Nancy Wake out of a police station it should, like he owned the fucking joint.
Like, it's so great. I just love that. And I love that she just, like, you know for a fact Nancy just walking out of there with this shit eating grin on her face.
Oh, you know it. Like, that's the thing. Like, no matter how dark it turns, no matter how weird it turns from the rest of this Bethany, you don't get fucking Nancy Wake down. I almost agree she would have been a waste as a human being pre-war time because she loves to thrive in chaos and she's so fucking good at it, and I give her fucking props, and I I get Nancy Wake. Like, fuck it. Like, that's her whole. I get her. But that being said, she walks out. Fake papers, schmoozing again, blah blah blah. O'Leary then stated to her directly that Laval was in Berlin and could not be contacted, not even by a man. Like, they go through this whole thing. Like, he explains to her why it worked. And so the White Mouse slips once more through German hands and finds herself yet again in a safe house in Toulouse, needing desperately to escape France.
Yeah. Damn.
You know what's funny, Jessica? I had an interesting experience at a train station in Toulouse, but not quite that caliber.
Not that, like, it's
Although
cooler,
there
though.
were protests. Funny
That's
enough.
I
hilarious.
kind of think it's a little bit cooler. Well, I don't know.
Gas
Can you
dispersal, which is
escape?
interesting.
Well, which was being done into the trucks, and that's why Nancy jumped the fuck out. So,
So
and then
God.
she's saved by the foremost resistance line fighter in all of goddamn Allied France.
Yeah, that was crazy. That is
Because he decides if that bitch is hard enough to take 4 days of a Nazi beating, who am I not to save her?
Wow.
Which is just, it's so banana bunker. That's the thing about Nancy Wake. I can't wrap my head around it because it's so much from a fucking movie, and
Yeah.
no movie exists.
Yes. Yeah.
That is some James Bond bullshit movie shit to pretend to be a friend of Pierre Laval and to float it so well that you think and they think that Nancy Fioca, wife of Henri Fioca of Marseille, is your actual fucking mister. It boggles the mind.
It does. It's hilarious. Like, I want to be that confident. You know what I mean? Like, I want to have that kind of confidence. To be able to
Which
just
is
walk
why,
into
contrary to fucking Warren's beliefs, I would be a great spy. Because I would sure the fuck walk in there with that confidence. All right, fine, whatever. Life or death. If I have to pretend to be something. And I love that about dance. Fine. Like, life or death. If I have to pretend to be your, like, fucking mistress, watch me work.
Well, shit. I cannot believe that she's just
I hope we all enjoyed that. I'm gonna skip an interesting. It's interesting, but it's not essential to the journey because we've done a lot of things that are essential to the journey. But what happens in the next year and a half, year or two, are not necessarily important to the journey, as in her learning lessons like that, if you will,
Yeah, okay.
about what it is, spy lessons. So we're going to jump ahead to when she starts getting into the SOE and some different shit like that. When she starts getting into that spyist bullshit. There are things she learns, but they're not necessarily essential like that. And
Gotcha.
so I've tried to cover the things that are going to make her a spy, if
Gotcha.
you will.
What you're saying is you're leaving me on a cliffhanger. Basically.
Yep,
Oh.
basically.
Yeah,
I get-
a hard one. More importantly, an important one, because she's going to learn from all of this shit and adapt it. From childhood, how she thinks. Everything else after this doesn't matter until she gets into it, if you will.
Got it.
So, that being said, we will be back for a 4th part of Nancy Wake. I don't say it won't be more rock and roll than this, but I don't know, because she's going to have to learn how to actually be a motherfucking spy, which is more difficult despite being among spies than you may think. So, I don't know. I don't know if people are loving this fucking.
it. But yes, should we go ahead and say where people can follow us? And then we'll say goodbye.
Yeah. Kara, where do people follow you? And please plug Time Travel Talks.
You can follow me at Kara DiDemuzio on Twitter or Kara.DiDemuzio on Instagram. Mind you, I'm a lot more active on Twitter. You can also find the project that I work on, Time Travel Talks, as we've insinuated in many an episode, on Twitter and Instagram, or Facebook in that case. And just a quick word on it. It's a community of anyone that really has a passion for history to come together and discuss, ask questions. It's a judgment-free zone, so there's no judgment. But yes, if anyone's interested that's listening, and the Discord group that I've created to kind of accompany the Twitter community I've built, let me know. Slide into my DMs, and I'll be happy to help. But other than that, where can we find you ladies?
You can find me on Instagram at Bethany Skelton 5, all lowercase. But if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's the same handle, but please capitalize my BS initials. And just
I'm starting to really love that Twitter plug. It's amazing. Capitalize on the BS is the best thing I've ever heard. You can find the podcast at bodycounthistorypod.com. Again, we're overhauling the website. It should be done this week. Then again, you can find us at Body Count Pod on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can find me at Jessica B. Manor on both Instagram. Although I don't pay, I'm not that active. And Twitter, which I am always active. And it's going to be out. This is going to be good for us.
yeah,
That's it.
I can't wait for the rest of her and what she does. So, woohoo! Yes.
It's going to get fucking nuts from here on out, Bethany. So, we appreciate you all. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.